So now that we have talked about supply on its own and demand on its own, now it's time to bring them together. Now it's important to understand when we talk about supply and demand, they just show relationships. So demand shows you at each price how many units are demanded, and supply tells you at each price how many units are supplied. And so it's really when those two distinct areas come together, that's where the market comes into play, where we see that interaction between the buyers and the sellers, and that is where we come up with price and quantity. How many units are sold in the market and at a specific price. Now, when we look at this, it's important to remember that we are assuming here that we have a perfectly competitive market. So we have a lot of buyers and a lot of sellers all coming together. So let's kind of work through this step by step here. So let's say we have a demand equation of price equals 70 minus 2 QD. Supply has an equation of supply equal or price equals 10 plus 2 QS. So if we go ahead and graph this, so we have our demand, which we need to graph. And so to find where it crosses one axis, you set the other equal to 0. And so to find where it crosses the quantity axis, the x-axis, set price equal to 0. And when you do that, you find it to be 35. And then we're across the price at quantity equal to 0. You find that to be 70. Oops. Where's that at? Okay. So then we look down here. You can find it crosses at 10. And then we get our supply. It's going to look something like this. Okay. So this is the example we're looking at. And so let's look at the case where, let's say that price equals 60. So we're saying that the price in the market is 60. So if we're looking at it, let's insert shape line. And so we're going to say right here, roughly. And we know that is 60. Right. So what's going on there? Let's see. So let's take a look. So let's first look at the demand. And so from the demand, we have price equals 70 minus 2 QD. And so we have the price, which is 60, equals 70 minus 2 quantity demanded. And if we subtract 60 from both sides, add 2 QD to both sides, we get 2 QD equals 10. If we divide both sides by 10, we get QD equals 5. So when we look at that, this tells you that when the price is 60, there are 5 units that are demanded. Now, if we do this for the supply, so for supply, we have price equals 10 plus QS. And when we do that, we have the price at 60, 10 plus quantity supplied. And so you find the quantity supplied is going to equal 50. Okay. So here's what we have when we have this high price of 60. So we have 50 units that are supplied and only 5 that are demanded. Okay. So there's more supply than demand, quantity supply than demand. And so when we look at this, we have a difference here. All right. And let's over here. Now, what we call this is we call it a surplus. Okay, we call it a surplus. So with a surplus or excess supply, there are more units supplied than are demanded. Right? And so we have our quantity supplied is greater than our quantity demanded at that price. And so again, we call it a surplus or just excess supply. And if you look at the amount, the excess supply is going to equal the quantity supplied less the quantity demanded, which is going to be 50 units are supplied minus 5 that are demanded, and so the surplus is going to be 45. And so what that means is that when the price is 60, there are 45 more units that are being supplied than are being demanded, because the sellers at that high price, the supply says, look, at that high price, they're willing and able to sell a lot. So let's think about that kind of in more natural terms, more of a specific example. So let's say that there's a farmer's market. And in that farmer's market, let's just assume that they only sell apples. And when we talk about perfectly competitive markets, we assume that every apple is exactly the same. All right, no one apple is better than the rest. So based on the market, all the farmers think that the price is going to be $3 an apple. So with $3 an apple, they're like, wow, that's really good. So at that $3, they're willing and able to sell a high amount. So, they have their big bushels of apples. They come in, they put them down, doors open up. Let's just assume they're open from 9 to 5. So people start coming in. They're looking around. They say, wow, $3 an apple, that's a lot. And because of that, because of that high price, they're not willing to buy that many. So what they do is they will actually not get that many. So what we're going to have in that case is where the price is high, we're going to have the quantity supplied of apples is going to be a lot more than the quantity demanded. So when the people leave at the end of the day, the farmers are sitting there with a lot of apples that they were ready to sell, but nobody wanted. So they have a surplus of apples. Now, from a business perspective, it is vital for them to say, I need to adjust. All right, I have this price here. Nobody wants to buy it. Not many people want to buy it. And so as a business owner, if that's the case, you're going to say to yourself, all right, you know what? Maybe I need to bring that price down a little bit. So what happens is when there's a surplus, it brings down the price. So let's look at another example. Let's say that the farmer, or in this case, let's see what happens when the price is 20. Okay, so let's say the price is 20. And so if we go through and we do this again, and actually, let me put this here. All right, so now we're going to say the price is 20. And so we still have our demand, price equals 70 minus 2 QD, but now the price is 20. And so we get 2 QD equals 50 because we subtract 20 from both sides. And so you find that when the price is 20, there are 25 units that are demanded. Now when you plug that into the price, 20, you find that the quantity supplied is going to be 10. So in this case, there are more units that are demanded than are supplied. What we call that, and we're looking over here, that's what we see. And so we're still seeing this gap here. And we call that we call it a shortage. So we call it a shortage. There are more units demanded than are supplied, or excess demand. And so if we go back over here, we're going to find the excess demand or the shortage. It's going to equal the number of units demanded minus number of units supplied. And so we're going to have 25 units that are demanded, 10 units that are supplied. And so the excess demand of the shortage is going to be 15. So there, at that price, there are 15 more units that are being demanded than are being supplied. So let's go back to our farmer's market example. In our farmer's market, we have the buyers, sellers, a lot of them. And so the farmers decide they bring down the price to, let's just say, 25 cents an apple. At 25 cents an apple, a lot of farmers might not be willing and able to sell that many. So yeah, that's price isn't that great. So the amount they supply, the quantity supplied is going to be low. So they go in and they have a few bushels of apples. Doors open, people come in and say, "Wow, 25 cents an apple, that's really good." And so the amount of apples that these consumers want is going to be high. And so they're going to go in and they're going to be, going for it. They're going to get what they can. And so what's going to happen then is, maybe they only get halfway through the day and the farmers run out of apples. They want to sell more. People want them, but they just don't have them. So as a business owner, if you're sitting there and at the end of the day, you're trying to sell things and people want it so badly at the price you have that you can't keep up with demand, you're going to think to yourself, people really want this. So maybe I should bring the price up a little more. So what we have here then is when we have prices being too high, the market is going to force down the price because of the surplus. When the price is too low and we have a shortage where there's more demand than supply, quantity demand than quantity supply, the market's going to say, all right, you know what? People want this stuff. They want it bad. We can't keep up with it. Let's bring it up. Okay. And so that's what we're going to have in these cases where we have competitive markets and their prices are such the case where supply and demand aren't equal to each other.